The first time I had a conversation about wearing a protective style with my boss because of my past. I had had this conversation with a white man before who was my boss, right? And I knew how it ended back then. So then when I brought this conversation to my new boss, I had a plan. I wrote it down. I had like backup options of responses. It was like a full-on research paper to ask if I could wear my natural hair. Like, who does that?
Black hair has always been political because it's marked as black. Anything that is marked as black within a society that is built on Eurocentric ideals, especially in terms of beauty, is going to be marked as other. And one of the ways in which black hair has been politicized, or even, dare I say, policed, is to show your degree to assimilating to white or Eurocentric ideas. And so hair has been one of those markers. Are you going to stay or be natural, or are you going to be relaxed?
The most popular one is the hair type that was created by a gentleman, actual hairstylist. And so it starts with type 2, then there's type 3, there's type 4. When you break that down, it depends on like the coil of your hair. It could be straight, it could be wavy, it could be kinky, it could be curly. From that started years ago. Some people discriminate against women that may have type 4 hair, or they'll discriminate against women that may have type 3 hair. So do I agree with that system? Not completely, because of what has become of it.
And it goes back to that question of good hair versus bad hair. I feel like, me being 4C, this is like the kinkiest style hair you can have, the tightest coils in your curls, and I feel like that's usually deemed bad hair because, again, it takes a little bit more to manage versus, like a 4A or 3A. You have a less tight curl pattern, and, people see that and immediately like, that's beautiful, or that's this, or whatever. And I know some people who have those textures, they often get asked, are you mixed with something? And that brings up a whole other can of worms where it's like, oh, if you have good hair, you can't just be black.
And that could probably date back to slavery and European standards. If you did not have straight hair, if you were not fair skinned, you were treated differently. So good hair, bad hair, it's a term that actually needs to be erased, because what's the definition of bad hair? What is it? Most people can't define that.
We have statistical studies that tell us that light-skinned, straight hair persons have more socioeconomic mobility. And this is, again, not by just thinking about that alone, but thinking about how we structure whole institutions to value and privilege particular kinds of bodies.
For work, it's always been, you have to come polished. And the main thing about TV news is consistency. You want the viewers to see you looking generally the same way every single day. And so that's kind of always been the standard. I would say, aside from, the straight hair, now it's definitely evolved.
A lot of the times women found themselves having to put perms in their hair, relaxers, slicking it back in any way, changing your dialect, code switching. I can go down the list. But a lot of it is because it's a system that hasn't changed yet, and anything that looks different is threatening.
When we're saying in a workplace or in other places that no, you cannot wear your hair in this particular way, you must conform to a Eurocentric standard of beauty, of course that is a marker of discrimination.
When we sign up to do this job, when we sign our contracts, or when we say we want to be a journalist, we know we're subject to all types of discrimination, or subject to all types of scrutiny. That's fine, because we're in the public eye. We're on television. That's okay. You can have your thoughts. However, when you are disrespecting a culture, or when you are tearing someone down because they're truly being themselves and their true authentic selves, that's where things get a little blurry.
The first thing people see when they see you is you. They see your face. They see your hair. They see your clothes. They see your posture. So how are you presenting yourself? I think you can have locks, you can have braids, but are you professional? And I there's probably a very thin line where people believe that you can't have both professionalism and a personal style. And I think we've kind of stepped into an era now where that's being dispelled. You can have both.
When I was growing up, I really didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. Of course, I had like Wanda Starks, but even her, I do remember a period of time where she went natural, and then shortly after she went right back to a relaxer. And I didn't know until later on in my life that it was because they actually had people complaining, viewers and everything else. And that's a complete, like, unfortunately common theme for a lot of Black women that are on air, that if you wear something that is out of the norm, different colored braids, dreadlocks, if you shave your hair, it's almost like, oh, get that girl off air. She looks unprofessional.
I've received an incredible amount of emails of people when I first started wearing my braids, or even most recently, I just did a speech to some high schoolers, and I opened it up by reading 4 emails that I got during Black History Month as it related to people attacking me for my hairstyle that I currently have right now. And people calling my hair ugly, people saying my hair makes me unprofessional, and all of these other stigmas that come with, one, already being a Black woman on television, but then being a Black woman where my hair might be a little out of place, it might be a little too curly, it might be nappy, so to speak, that someone might view it that way, and it's terrible.
I used to just be so concerned about, okay, well, if I'm doing braids this week and then I switch something else, like, are people going to call me out? Are they going to be like, oh, that's not your hair? Are they going to, ask 20,000 questions? Because the questions get uncomfortable. It is like when you're when you're in the space of being other in your classrooms and in your friend groups, that the questions kind of deter you from doing what you want to do. But the older I got, I'm like, no, this is how I want to wear my hair. This is what looks good on me. This is a protective style for me. This is, X, Y, and Z. So I've kind of been able to let go of some of the thoughts or the questions, and it doesn't matter because it's, what I got to look in the mirror every day and deal with.
When you choose, and we use the language of going natural, as if there's something to return to, but when we choose to actually disavow or reject the standards, on the Eurocentric standards of hair imposed on us, it is as if we're saying to the dominant culture, we are good as we are.
Well, my first job was actually in Charleston, South Carolina, and that's a town where a lot of racism still exists to this day. It was very hard. I was the only Black reporter at that station with the only Black female photographer at that station. So as a duo and us showing up to certain places, we've gotten kicked out. We've been called the N-words before. Like, I have seen some really dark things while working in Charleston. Not to mention, my previous boss did not allow me to wear my hair in a natural style, in a protective style. I asked countless times to wear braids. I asked countless times to wear my natural hair, and it was always a no, no, no. Your reel, which a reel is something that, we put out in order to get the job, has you in a straight bob, so you will wear a straight bob. That's what I was told. So for a year and a half, I not only had to damage my hair through heat, I also had to only allow it to be braided up and underneath all of these wigs and sew-ins and all of these things. I damaged my hair for a year and a half because I was not allowed to truly be myself or allowed to wear my natural hair or protective style. So it hurt. But I knew walking into my next job that would be something that would be mandatory. If you can't accept me for me, I don't want to work here.
When I went from having super long straight hair to shaving my head, I still noticed the difference on how my coworkers treated me. I was getting a little bit different attitude towards me. So before, I had my hair waist length, it was long, and it was blonde. So I feel like I was approached a lot differently. As soon as I shaved my head, all of a sudden it was like, oh, Christina always has an attitude. Why are you being aggressive? I feel like you're no longer a team player. And it was weird because it was all these little microaggressions that I hadn't experienced in my 3 years there, all of a sudden starting to show up.
There were times where if I couldn't get an appointment with my stylist, I wouldn't want to go to work because I wouldn't feel confident and I wouldn't think that I was looking presentable enough. And then that impacts your performance because you're not confident. You're worrying about your hair. You're worrying about if you're going to say something. And, I had experiences in places that I interned where reporters wanted to go natural and they, came to work natural and were told, no, you need to do something with that. You need to tame your hair. It's taking away, it's distracting. So when you have those images in your mind, and if you're told as a reporter, if you want to get to the anchor desk, you need to look a certain way, then you feel a pressure to maintain a certain appearance because you think that you're going to be held back if you go otherwise.
That's a big misconception when it comes to people, that natural hair is unkept, and it's not. This is just the way it grows, and as long as I'm maintaining my hair, this is the way it is.
The first time I had a conversation about wearing a protective style with my boss because of my past. I had had this conversation with a white man before who was my boss, right? And I knew how it ended back then. So then when I brought this conversation to my new boss, I had a plan. I wrote it down. I had backup options of responses. It was like a full-on research paper to ask if I could wear my natural hair. Who does that? Do white women have to do that? Do they have to come in with documentation and proof of why I need to do this? But I did. I had basically a full-on presentation to sit down and ask my boss if I could give my natural hair a break and wear some braids.
I think it's important, though, in your newsroom, not to just have people on air, but to have people behind the scenes. Because if you have no one that I can go in and talk to and say, okay, hey, listen, I'm going to change my hair up and I'm going to do this style for, the next few months, or I'm going natural. If you don't have anyone that understands what that means, then I think a large part of it is when there's a lack of understanding, when you use these terms, they're like, so what exactly are you doing? What does that mean? And so that points to the need for diversity in the newsroom.
When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, a part of that is making sure that you're bringing your authentic self to the job. When you're able to come in focused, you're results driven, and you're able to produce the work, there's less attention put on, what you wore today versus what you're doing to get the job done. The Crown Act is important because it is yet another written law that is speaking up against discrimination regarding BIPOC individuals. Sometimes it's like if it's not in writing, then it doesn't count or it doesn't exist.
So my name is Orlina Nwaka Blanchard, and I am one of the co-creators of the Crown Act movement, a legislative movement to outlaw hair discrimination in the U.S. In May 2018, the Supreme Court essentially dismissed, refused to review a case of Chastity Jones, who was a young woman who was made a job offer, asked to cut her locks that she had been growing for years. When she refused, the job offer was rescinded. So now you're denying someone livelihood because of your perception of, the level of professionalism of their hair, or whether their hair is worthy of that particular job opportunity. And Chastity Jones was one of those stories that was really prominent, that we saw and recognized that this really was a prevalent issue in the workplace. Current anti-discrimination law under the protected class of race doesn't actually define race, because race is not genetic, right? It's not biological. It's actually a social construct that has been built into the fabric of this country and into the laws of this country historically. So what we sought to do was extend how race was defined according to existing anti-discrimination law. And what we did was amend existing anti-discrimination law to ensure that the definition of race included hair texture and protective hairstyles. And what the legal team could show is that natural hair is so indistinguishable from race that it's basically the same thing in terms of how it's treated or perceived. And so we actually have done research on behalf of the Dove brand that shows that Black hair is 2.5 more times likely to be perceived as unprofessional. That means people are treating you, looking at you, talking to you, treating you differently. But then when you're passed over for promotion, when you you're in a job interview and somebody tells you early on in the interview, you haven't even gotten the job, but they let you know that there's a grooming policy you should be aware of if you're going to continue to interview or make progress through the interview. And so those sorts of things not only have an economic impact on us, especially as Black women, but Black people in general, but they have a psychological impact as well.
When we say it's hard being Black in America, this is what we mean. And when people say like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? Do you wake up and have to figure out and need a law to wear your hair and do your dry shampoo and all these other things? You don't need a law for that, baby, but we do. And so I think the Crown Act is one of those things where, one, the fact that we have it within itself says so much. The fact that we need it says so much about where our country is right now.
The other thing about laws like the Crown Act is there are some people who are just not aware. And so it's not until they hear it that perhaps strikes some curiosity, they go research it, and then there's this dialogue about, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. Yeah, this is a thing. And there is a group of people who have been struggling and fighting to be able to wear their natural hair in the workplace without discrimination.
There's building awareness and making sure people know, but it's also helping people understand what recourse they have, right? And it's recognizing microaggressions when those things become discrimination. It's one thing for somebody to attempt to touch your hair and pet you like an animal. That's unacceptable. That is microaggression. So we all joke about that. Don't touch my hair, but it's not a joke, right? It's not a joke, because what happens is if you can go so far as to touch my hair as if I'm a pet and handle me, then how do I believe that you wouldn't think that much of me or that less of me? Where when you're making decisions about what rooms I should be in, whether my voice is valid or valued, that doesn't have an effect as well. So I think what's really important is making sure that there's training across every workplace for people to be aware, but also understand the things they need to do differently.
When we talk about policies and implementing those policies in newsrooms, when you have something like that that lays out very clearly what discrimination is, actions that can and need to be taken, it's empowering to those that have fought for so long to overcome these obstacles.
I remember the first time that I walked in, with my hair naturally curly after having worn it straight for years and years and years. And it was an incredibly positive experience for me. Everyone kind of was like, oh my gosh, your hair looks so great. And it was more pressure that I put on myself. I didn't know how people were going to react. So yes, I was nervous about that. But I think it was a lesson for me to just know that it's okay, to give yourself some grace. It's going to be okay. And just to not be afraid to embrace, yourself.
When I took this job here in Tampa, I knew that I needed to be at a place who accepted Deanne for Deanne in all of her glory. The craziness, the foolery, the authenticity, all of it, right? And I am so blessed to be able to say that I am at a place where I am accepted no matter how I show up at work. Now, granted, yes, within our contract, we have to have a certain kind of level of professionalism and standard as it relates to our look, because our look is a large part of our job, right? However, it's not to say that I can't wear my natural hair. It's not to say that I can't go from braids to a wig or something like that. I have those conversations with my boss. He's very well aware of when I'm trying to switch it up or when I want to switch it up and things like that. And I am grateful to be in a workplace that encourages that.
You shouldn't be able to walk into a newsroom or walk into any kind of office and be judged by your hair. You should be judged by your skills and what you're bringing to the table. That's what people should be looking at, should be more focused on, and not your hair. A lot of companies, especially in a newsroom, push for. A lot of newsrooms, they're pushing, they want more people of color because the public is calling for them. We want more representation in the media. We want more people that look like us on air. And a general person of color, we all wear kind of just all kinds of styles. I mean, we have dreads, we have wash and goes, we have crochet, we have braids. Some of us don't have hair at all. And it's so empowering and refreshing to like see somebody who's on air who looks like us, who's on that kind of platform and represented us, and it just makes it feel relatable.
I got braids in 2020 for the first time since I was in college, and I just felt so confident and I was so embraced, and I received so many positive messages, and I started doing different things with my hair. And I remember specifically, I just wore some straight back braids, and a grandmother sent a message to the newsroom and was like, my granddaughters watched you on the news last night with your hair, and they were just like, to see a news lady that looks like me, that reflects me sitting at the anchor desk. And it just showed me the importance of representation. Like, people in the community need to see someone that looks like them and see that you can attain these things.
Me wearing my natural hair, when I'm anchoring and when I'm reporting now, as a way to show like other little Black girls who are looking at the TV and maybe they see, me and think, okay, my hair is professional. My hair looks good. My hair is pretty too.
So when we are thinking about, identity, hair becomes one of the ways, even from thinking about colonialism or when Black women were enslaved, it became a way to tell where you were from. Depending on braids and how you stylize your hair, it could say what ethnic community you came from. It could tell you in terms of rank or status, in terms of your ethnic community and or tribe. It also could signify where you were in terms of age, moving from a particular type. And we have this now, even in African American communities, where you move out of just having pigtails and ponytails to moving toward, maybe I'm getting my hair straightened for the first time.
I am Afro-Latino, so I am Puerto Rican and Dominican. So I have a crazy amount of textures going on in my hair. And growing up, God bless my mom, but she did the best she could with the tools she had. And my hair texture was something that she was completely unfamiliar with. So she did what most moms did at that time period in the 90s. They would do the braids, and then when you would get to a certain age, they would go relax it. And I remember when I got the relaxer, and that was the first time I ever had heat in my hair. I remember how much it hurt, how much I didn't like it, the smell. But I think one of the stories that stands out to me the most was when I got my relaxer, my hair went from being in braids that were up to here, and of course, us as Black women, we know shrinkage, to having my hair down to my waist. I remember going to school that next week, and I had a teacher stop me. Mind you, I am in 4th grade at this time. And she goes, "Excuse me, you can't wear that to school." And I said, "Wear what?" And she goes, "That wig. You can't wear wigs to school." And I said, "It's not a wig, it's my hair." And I remember her running her hands through my hair and saying, "Oh, wow, I didn't know your hair could do that. It's beautiful." And that's still something that sticks with me today. Even like me shaving my head, I still have sometimes, I'm detangling my hair and I'm like, huh, like that memory just pops right back up. Like I can't run my fingers through my hair.
My parents never told me my hair was nappy, but they are like, oh, look at this kitchen in the back of your head. It was the kitchen in the back of your head. Look at them gnats and stuff or whatever. It needs to be straightened. So when I was younger, my mom used to like straighten my hair with a straightening comb for like special events, like whether we're going to church or whether we're just going to a special family outing. And I had to sit in the kitchen, I sit in the chair, and she'll just kind of like straighten it from the roots down. And it's like now we know this with research and everything and how everything gets today, that's not really healthy, putting that much heat on your hair. So what does that do? It causes breakage. It causes like your edges to fall out and things over time. But of course, you don't know that during that time and as a child. And eventually I got a perm because that was what was expected. That was what is accepted. And it was the idea that it made your hair easier to manage.
My mom always taught me to take care of my hair. She definitely instilled that importance in me. And so that's definitely something I keep up to this day. I take pride in my hair. She didn't really make any comments about, whether it was good or bad or whatever, but I would get that from other people.
I don't think we really talked much about my texture. I think it was just, all right, yep, no, you got nappy hair, you know what I mean? It's hard to manage. Like, I was very tender-headed as a kid, so I, cried with it being combed through, and you know how it is with kids. It's hard for them to sit still. It's hard for them to understand, so it just became easier to relax it. So I relaxed my hair from 5 to 6 up until probably 21, 22. I felt like my mom always tried to instill me with, you are beautiful, you are you, kind of embrace yourself, but just kind of from hearing from other people, things about black hair being unprofessional and certain styles not working out well. So that was all I was so nervous kind of going into the media field that I've gone into.
I had a massive afro. So I am still natural to this day. I've never had a perm. I've never had a relaxer. I've never had chemicals in my hair. My mom was very big on that. And I had a lot of hair. So she was always like, there's no reason for you to have a perm or anything like that. So what did that mean for me? I sat on that kitchen floor and got that hot comb to my head. I still have ear burns. I had burns on my forehead from when it would get too hot and things like that. So for me growing up, my hair was often very different. There were periods of times where I was actually bullied for my hair. And I didn't feel beautiful coming to school in an afro. And I remember that's kind of where the braids came into play. I started wearing braids more often because I didn't want to wear my afro anymore because I was getting picked on. I remember telling my mom that I'm being bullied at school for my hair. My hair did not change. She still made me go to school with my hair because it taught me that this is who you are, Deanne. And those people who are talking about you, well, where are they now? And look at what you're doing now, So a parent's love and guidance and their being able to nurture their child to love their hair will go a very long way. Because the reason why I'm able to even sit here and be proud of the hair that's coming out of my head or be proud of the protective styles that I wear on television for thousands of people to see every day is because of the confidence that my mother instilled in me when I was a child.
I was not taught anything about my natural hair. I was not taught that my hair is beautiful and that I should love it and I shouldn't manipulate it to look like something else. I decided I need to teach my daughter to love her natural hair, right? And we did have a situation with that in elementary school where she wanted to straighten her hair because she wanted to look like her white classmates. So when you're trying to have that conversation with a 6-year-old, there's a lot of context that needs to be shared for a 6-year-old. The mindset of a 6-year-old and teaching her not only to love her hair texture, but to love your skin color. Here's why. This is why it's important. And then show examples. And so it was not taught to me, but because it was not taught to me, it made me mindful to teach loving your hair to my own my own child.
It's all about having that self-assurance and self-confidence, and that starts as a child, especially as a child of color, just letting them know like you're worthy, you're beautiful, your skin is beautiful, your hair is beautiful. They need to hear those words directly, not just indirectly. They need to see that in a parent. They need to see that in an older figure, to know that it's okay to embrace your individuality. It's okay to express yourself.
Feel more confident with my hair choices today. You know, I've shaved my head, I've dyed it blonde, I've had braids, I've done a little bit of everything with my hair, and it's no longer gotten to the point where I feel like, okay, if I wear my hair natural, I feel like my authentic self, or if I wear my hair straight, then I fit in more with the Latin community. Now it's more of a, I'm gonna do whatever makes me happy with my hair.
I would say that growing up, my hair identity has changed quite a bit. I used to think that straighter hair, that, you know, those loose curl textures, everything, that was better, that was the standard, that was what, you know, I should aspire my hair to look like. But now I don't think that anymore. I think that my hair is beautiful as it is. For me, it's all about keeping my hair healthy. You know, that's how I would say my hair identity has changed.
My hair identity now it's just an extension of me. It's an extension of the confidence that I now wear in my life, in my job, and in instances where I felt like I allowed, quote, my hair to hold me back, in the sense of, oh, well, I can't go to work today, or I can't do this thing because of my hair. Those things don't exist anymore. I embrace my hair. I'm confident with my hair. I love my hair. And it's something that when I have a child, that I want to instill in them.
My hair is a representation of me, how I feel in that moment, how I feel at that time. And it could be a wig. It could be my natural hair. It could be my hair pressed, which is long, by the way, because my hair comes down my back. It could be braids. It could be curly braids. It could be straight braids. It could be a bun in braids. I've done that as well. And it honestly just depends on how I feel and how I want to be seen and represented in that moment. So to me, my hair is truly Deanne King. It's whoever she feels like being in that moment.
We're not just laying down anymore. We're not, flat ironing our hair or relaxing our hair just to make it easier for others. We're like, no, that has been damaging our hair for years. And I have nothing against, obviously, flat ironing, relaxing your hair. Like, I want every woman to do what it is that's going to be best for them. But the women who felt like they had to be accepted in professional environments, that's where that needs to stop. And I feel like now we have people who are speaking up and saying, no, like, my hair is professional. No, this is a great style. This is a protective style. This looks great on camera. I'm going to continue to do it and show little girls at home that they can too.
When I see Black women in media, whether it's, a musician, a journalist, and they're rocking their natural hair or even rocking a protective style, like, I smile, I love it, because it's just really pushing it forward and helping other women and men, like, be comfortable with, hey, I'm going to show up to the workplace in my natural state. I'm not going to hide anymore.
Black women should be able to wear their hair in a beautiful blowout, wear it in Senegalese twist. You can wear it in braids. You can wear your natural afro, however, right? But if it's the hair that grows out of our heads, we need to reprogram ourselves because we've been taught that that's not beautiful. And we have to tell ourselves and remind ourselves and reclaim our beauty and the beauty that we've always had, which is, I think, for all those in media, there's a new opportunity and a new day because we're seeing more and more women in front of the camera wearing their natural hair, wearing protective hairstyles, but also encouraging others to do so. So I would just say, turn to your sisters who support you, who are doing the same, who are paving the way, have the courage to do it. And every time you get a little nervous that somebody might say something to you funny, go check out thecrownact.com, go to dove.com/crown. Look at everything that's happening around the movement. And the legislation now is in 20 states, which means legally you have the right to celebrate it and you have recourse if anybody tells you otherwise.
Black hair is inspiring.
Beautiful.
Versatile.
Unique.
Powerful.
resilient,
Brave.
Dynamic.
Black hair is professional.
the cultural trends of Black women basically move everything. So Black women are seen as trendsetters, and hair is also one of those.
Like, oh my God, yeah, your hair is so nice, and let me touch it. And that's a whole nother conversation. Don't touch my hair. Don't touch my hair.
We all joke about that, don't touch my hair, but it's not a joke.